what the note said.
You're not going to choke yourself to death like that.
This was a suspicious death.
Lifeless on the floor of her basement apartment.
This is the story of Tina Lunney, who took her mother's life on July the 23rd, 2009 in New Jersey. Why? All over credit cards. Pretty sure the APR wasn't too high, my love. What the hell are you doing? Now, according to Detective Robert Pratchard of the Homicide Squad, he initially met Tina on July the 23rd, 2009 at her home in Fairfield, where Marie Zoppi had been found dead that morning. Marie was the mother of Tina. Later that day, Tina and her husband, Christopher Lunney, gave videotaped statements at police headquarters. Also, at the headquarters, Tina signed the reverse side of a suicide note left at the scene that was allegedly written by Zoppi. The police officer Prasha recalled the note stating, "Tell the kids I love them. You don't need me." At that time, no suspects were identified. On July the 24th, Christopher filed a missing persons report for his wife. Detective Sergeant Louis Camerata of the Fairfield Police Department, he said that just before 5 a.m. on July the 27th, 2009, Deputy Chief Stephen Guxon informed him that one of Tina's neighbors had seen her walking down the street near her home. Officer Frank Tracy was driving around. He managed to find Tina and he brought her into the police station. Police then drove Tina, who was not handcuffed, to the prosecutor's office between 5:20 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Tina asked the police, "Have you seen my children?" To which they replied they had not. Upon their arrival at around 6 a.m., the prosecutor's office directed them to a conference room. She was wanted for questioning because she had been reported as a missing person, and the autopsy of Zoppi revealed that Zoppi had been murdered. Police had assumed that Tina was brought in for questioning because of the fact that she was a missing person. The prosecutor's office sought to question Tina about the circumstances surrounding her mother's death, specifically whether Zoppi had been taken, threatened or held against her will. So Tina, she's there, she's sitting on a conference table with the police around her. The room did not contain video recording equipment. They began by asking Tina about her previous whereabouts. Tina responded by stating, "You want me to tell you what happened to my mother? I want to tell you what happened to my mother." They immediately stopped the questioning because they felt a confession was coming. The police left the conference room and entered the nearby media room to prepare for the video recording of Tina's statement. They returned to the room with a pre-printed Miranda form. In her 45-minute statement, Tina said she woke up on July the 22nd, 2009 around 7 a.m. She got her children ready for summer camp. Zoppi came upstairs to the kitchen and decided to make some coffee. Just before Tina left for work, Zoppi asked her to apply cream on her neck. While applying the cream, Tina saw a jacket and necktie near the refrigerator. She then, while talking to the police, demonstrated how she got the necktie, put it around her mother and throttled her. Tina also demonstrated with a piece of paper how Zoppi struggled and eventually fell to her knees. "That's your own mother, young woman, what's wrong with you?" Tina dragged Zoppi to her room by her feet and left her in front of the couch. She sat on the couch, caught her breath, took a piece of her mother's stationery, and eventually went back upstairs to her residence after locking Zoppi's room. At approximately 8:45 a.m., Tina called her supervisor to alert him that she would be late for work. She arrived at work around 10:40 a.m. and at 1:15 p.m. she went home for lunch. Before leaving for lunch, she told her co-workers that she needed to check on her mother, who was not feeling well. The following morning, Tina wrote a note on her mother's stationery, suggesting that her mother committed suicide. What a sick individual. Tina told Christopher and her children that Zoppi was with Tina's brother Joseph. Later that morning, Tina climbed through one of Zoppi's windows because she did not have a key to her mother's dwelling and placed a note on the couch. She then cried, released the necktie from her mother's neck and placed a blanket over the body. Next, Tina called her husband and told him to come home from work. When he arrived, she told him that her mother had passed away. Tina showed the note to Christopher. That's when they called 911. On Friday, July the 24th, 2009, Tina initially planned to walk to a local convenience store to buy cigarettes. Instead, she went to Dunkin' Donuts and Target. She then hitchhiked and took a bus to the Bloomfield Shopping Center and later to Atlantic City, two places that she used to visit with her mother. After you take your mother's life, playing blackjack is not the one, lady. With respect to whether the murder was financially motivated, Tina details some of her financial issues, and this is why she did what she did. Listen to this. Check this out. She had late mortgage payments, she had credit card debt, bounced checks, and the shutting off of her electricity for failure to pay the bill. She also did not have enough money to pay for an upcoming family vacation. Tina, however, denied any altercation with Zoppy or that her financial issues motivated the murder of her mother. Now, during the final few minutes of her statement, police questioned Tina about whether she previously had an extramarital affair. She asked police whether her husband knew about the affair, how he became aware of it, and the reason for the question. Tina also told police, everything I'm telling you now, this is between us, right? Only what happened in this room stays in this room, right, officer? No, dumbass. She acknowledged that she had been sleeping with the police officer twice a year. Toward the end of her statement, they asked Tina whether she wanted another cup of coffee, to which she responded yes. She then asked whether she could go home. Just before police left the interview room, Tina asked whether what she had said will stay in this room. But after she made this statement, Tina was arrested. An inventory of her purse revealed prescription bottles and goodbye notes to her children and husband. She was not tested for drugs at that time. You see, Tina's family lived in a bi-level home along with Zoppy. Zoppy's unit had a separate entrance door and only she possessed the key. Both Tina's husband and brother stated that Tina and Zoppy had a good relationship. Tina, however, was in charge of the family's finances. In the spring of 2007, Christopher received an inheritance of $37,000 from his father, and unbeknownst to him, Tina spent all of it. All that wonga gone. What on earth could she have spent $37,000 on? Did she take a trip to the Wizard of Oz and then leave her brain on the yellow brick road? In February 2009, a representative from her mortgage lender sent Tina her first notice of foreclosure, and 3 more were subsequently sent. In June, Tina wrote 2 checks from a TD Bank joint checking account, both in the amount of $289, which were returned for insufficient funds. TD Bank referred the account for collection to a law firm. Now, between June the 29th and July the 1st, 2009, the electricity to Tina's home was shut off for non-payment. I'm sorry, if somebody gives you $37,000, whether it's your husband's or not, you can pay your electricity, bruv. What's wrong with you? The Lunneys and 4 other families planned to rent a summer vacation home. Each family was required to pay around $3,000. Tina successfully paid the first deposit in March 2009 after 2 prior checks were returned for insufficient funds. On July the 21st, a representative from the rental agency informed Tina that her check for the remainder of the deposit was returned for insufficient funds. On July the 22nd, 2009, sometime between 8:30 and 9 a.m., Tina called her supervisor and told him that she would be late for work. Christopher subsequently received a telephone call from Tina stating that her boss had a big-time attitude because she was going to be late for work. A regional investigator for Chase Credit Card Company testified during the trial that on July the 22nd, 2009, payments from Zoppy's Visa card were processed to the rental agency at 9:48 a.m. and to the gas and electric company. She made payments to the gas pump company over the telephone with Zoppy's credit card. Then, between 10:26 a.m. and 11:18 a.m., Tina exchanged text messages with a co-worker in which Tina wrote that Zoppy was not feeling well and was acting depressed. Now, upon Tina's arrival at work, sometime after 11:18 a.m., she mentioned to her supervisor that her mother wasn't feeling well, as previously mentioned. However, she told her co-worker that Zoppy was feeling better and watching television. The co-worker also recalled Tina informing her that she was going home for lunch to check on Zoppy. But it's important to note that before she left, on her work computer, she went onto the website to whichever outstanding bills that she owed on top of the gas and the electric or whatever, and she used her mother's credit card. Again, this is after she put the necktie around her mother. Christopher testified that he came home from lunch on July the 22nd, 2009, and Zoppy was not there, which was atypical. Christopher wondered where Zoppy was, as he had not seen her that day. On July the 23rd, 2009, at approximately 9 AM, Tina hysterically called Christopher. She said on the phone, "There's something wrong with my mother, you have to come home." Well, duh, you did something to her, you muppet. Christopher met Tina in the laundry room, where she told him that Zoppy had committed suicide. Tina handed him the suicide note, purportedly written by Zoppy. Christopher looked into Zoppy's bedroom from a window and saw her body lying on the floor. He asked Tina whether she had called 911, to which she replied no. Then he called 911 immediately. At 9:20 AM, Officer Christopher Nicholas of the Fairfield Police Department responded to the scene. He saw the victim lying face down on the floor in a pool of blood, partially covered with a blanket with a necktie around the neck. He felt no pulse and notified the sergeant that he believed the scene was suspicious due to the necktie around her neck and the large amount of blood coming from her facial area. And to be fair, Tina isn't the smartest tool in the box. No way she was going to stage this crime scene to fool police. Nicholas briefly questioned Tina at home about her mother's previous whereabouts. According to Nicholas, Tina said she spoke with her mother around 10:30 AM on July 22nd before leaving for work. During that conversation, Zoppy told Tina that she was going out with Joseph for the day. Zoppy also told Tina, "You don't need me today." That night, Tina went to check on her mother after the wake, but it was dark in her mother's dwelling and her door was locked, and Tina assumed she was sleeping. The next morning, Tina called Zoppy's landline phone but received no answer. Tina grew increasingly concerned, so she looked through a window and saw her mother on the floor. That's what she told police in the house. You know, one thing as human beings we hate the most? We can take criticism, we can take hate. What we can't take is a liar. Tina proceeded to crawl through the window and covered Zoppy with the blanket because she looked cold. Later that day, Christopher, Tina and Joseph gave statements to the police. While there, Christopher gave Zoppy's alleged suicide note to Prashar, the police officer. Joseph thought there's no way his mother could have done this because she was quite religious. When asked whether the handwriting matched his mother's, he said, well, maybe she scribbled stuff. At trial, Joseph doubted that his mother had authored the note. Now, Tina additionally recalled that her electricity had been shut off for a few days for non-payment. The bill had been paid sometime during the week of Zoppy's death. She also mentioned that Zoppy had recently paid for a new water heater. Christopher testified that after he and Tina gave statements, they went to the home of his sister, Lisa, and slept there that night. At 5:30 AM on July the 24th, Tina told Christopher that she was going to walk about a mile and a half to a local convenience store, but she never returned. And this is where Christopher filed a missing persons report for his wife, again as mentioned previously. The jury was shown video surveillance footage of Tina at the Bloomfield Library and at an Atlantic City casino taken during the time she was reported missing. Again, blackjack, not the one. No fingerprint evidence linked Tina to the crime, and no DNA evidence was recovered from the victim. On July the 24th, 2009, Dr. Eddie Lilavoy, an expert in forensic pathology, performed the autopsy at trial, and he said the cause of death was strangulation. He estimated that Zoppy died sometime between noon on July the 22nd and the time at which she was found by Tina on July 23rd. During the trial, Dr. Robert Latimer, a forensic psychiatrist, testified for Tina. Latimer examined Tina at the Essex County Jail on March 16, 2010. During the first interview, Tina was incoherent and severely burdened with memory lapses. Or she was just a moron. Latimer did not diagnose her at the time, although he believed she had been overwhelmed and had multiple symptoms of mental disease. During Latimer's second interview, he found Tina in a manic state. She was laughing constantly and inadequately, in a manner that was not consistent with her legal situation. Tina told him she felt embarrassed about her adulterous relationship with a police officer, sad about her mother's death, and stressed about her financial difficulties. Well, you muppet, those three are not interlinked, but somehow you managed to link them. Latimer diagnosed her as psychotic and found her to be in an abnormal affective state. Latimer believed Tina was in a state of dissociative fugue, meaning that her personality had disassociated itself from reality in order to avoid unpleasant affective states. What? She'd gone crackers, is that what you're saying? He supported that conclusion by referencing her trip to Atlantic City, which was taken without any good reason. He detailed comments that Tina made during her July 27, 2009 statement, which evidenced her detachment from reality, such as, "I didn't know. I couldn't believe it. I guess I did it. I guess, but I don't know. Yes, I did. I strangled my mother, but I don't remember. And I'm not sure, it must have been somebody else. Can I go home now? Can I stay here? Blah blah blah." In further support of his opinion, Latimer referred to Tina's jail records, which showed that she appeared disoriented upon her arrest and was prescribed Risperdal, an antipsychotic medication, for several months thereafter. On cross-examination, Latimer acknowledged that a November 28, 2009 jail note suggested that Tina's mental stability had improved, as she had stopped taking Risperdal and was hoarding it. Latimer explained that people who have dissociative fugues come back slowly to normal. Now, Dr. Azariah Ashkenazi, a forensic psychiatrist, testified for this state. Ashkenazi conducted an approximately hour-long interview of Tina in 2011. During the interview, Tina taking any medication and explained that Latimer had misdiagnosed her as psychotic and manic when in fact she had just been eager to talk to someone. So she was lonely, she was in need, and it goes back to the age-old human need of wanting attention, wanting to feel important. Maybe she no longer felt important in her life and she blamed her mother. Who knows? Tina also acknowledged receiving and understanding her Miranda rights and signing the Miranda waiver despite being very tired and hungry at the time. Ashkenazi reviewed Tina's videotape confession and determined that her statements were logical, relevant, and responsive. He also found that she had never been hospitalized or treated for mental illness and had been consistently employed until the day of her arrest. He believed that there was no evidence to suggest Tina had ever suffered from a mental disorder. He concluded that she had waived her Miranda rights knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily. On cross-examination, Ashkenazi acknowledged that Tina's jail records reflected that she had been prescribed a low dosage of Risperdal to alleviate the symptoms associated with adjustment disorder, with anxiety and depression. Now, Judge Moore denied Tina's motion to suppress the statements she made to the police in 2009, concluding that her mental illness of dissociative fugue did not render her waiver or statement involuntarily. In other words, yeah, she may not have been fully aware, she may have been a little bit crackers, but she knew what she was doing. The judge also found Ashkenazi's testimony credible, particularly in light of Tina's own statement to him that she knew she received the Miranda rights, understood them, and knew she signed the Miranda waiver. When Tina was in jail, she sent a handwritten letter to Christopher. This letter discussed defensive strategy and mentioned a number of mutual acquaintances. She says, "Chris, whenever you can come. Again, I put Lisa on the list so you don't have to come by yourself. I took some pills and wrote goodbye letters because when I realized what I did, I wanted to kill myself. Everything else is a blur. I don't know what's true. I felt bad. I took the pills. I did not pay the bills. I felt like I was under a lot of pressure. God forbid the kids were unhappy with me." The psychiatrist said it was like an outer body experience, yes, but is that temporary? Temporary insanity? Diminished capacity? Psychology, can that happen? That's what did happen. But if there's a better reasoning, tell me. I flipped and I didn't realize I did it. Believed my lie. Can that happen? What state of mind is emotional stress? No sleep the night before. Did it? Panicked, then covered it up. Don't tell the doctor, why figure out something? Phil from Hollywood was asking for me, how did he know I know Greg? I confessed everything to police. When I was riding the buses, My mother was with me. I hadn't eaten. I heard voices. Vicky. When I got there, I heard voices I didn't remember. Now most of that letter is incoherent because again she's crackers, but eventually Tina was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and for me, couldn't care less about her psychological state. She knowingly blew her husband's money. She knowingly did not pay the bills. She knowingly hid all of this from her family, and she got everything she deserved by taking the life of the very woman that bore her. Comment, tell me what you think.